Hello, I am Super Orange Cat, and here I am with Toonami's ratings from November 16th, 2019. Let's start at the top of the block. Beginning the block, we have My Hero Academia at a 0.21, One Punch Man at a 0.19, Dr. Stone at a 0.19, Fire Force at a 0.18, Food Wars at a 0.16, Demon Slayer at a 0.15, Black Clover at a 0.13, Golden Wind at a 0.13, Shippuden at a 0.14, Loop on the Third Part 5 at a 0.13, and Attack on Titan Rerun pulls in a 0.14. In general, I think this was a pretty samey week. Not much can be said about last this week that couldn't be said last week. Like I said last week, I believe we've hit a period where this is going to be the new normal. We don't have Dragon Ball on the block anymore, so we're never going to see that point 0.3 number again. And I think the highest we're going to do is roughly what My Hero Academia is at now at a 0.21. And last week it was at a 0.20. And if you know last week, if you follow My Hero Academia, you'll know that the first episode of season 4 is actually somewhat of a recap episode. So maybe a lot of people just kind of tuned out because it just felt like, oh, it's a clip show. But this episode being the first episode that really went into the plot of season 4, so that got a little bit of an uptick. And then after that, from most of the block, you couldn't really almost the exact same numbers you get from last week. Like One Punch Man, I think it fell 1/100 to a 0.19. Not a bad number, but again, now that we're starting to really see what this season really is, and I know I've said in the past that I've so far really, really loving season 2 and One Punch Man. I still really, really like it, but the whole premise is going to be like this whole like everyone battling on one day for like 2/3 of the season. And it kind of reminds me of the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter in a bad way. Like maybe some of the weaker aspects of it, the whole all this happens in 10 minutes, which I get it, but at the same time, it feels slow even if it's going at a good pace. But at the same time, One Punch Man, I still like the fact that they're not light with the action. Action is still happening with especially Genos being ambushed and presumably killed, and about this whole thing too about Tatsu. I keep forgetting her name. The woman who's like the top fighter in Class B, and her younger sister, the terrible tornado, who's the second best hero. Like that dynamic, I really willing to see how they develop that further. Like who attacked Genos and this whole concept of this monster association. So, although I'm not enjoying it as much, I still think this is a nice, fun season so far, and I'm looking forward to more of it. And you have Dr. Stone at a 0.19. I think that's what it got last week. It's in the high teens. It's been in the high teens the whole time. And unlike the next show I'm going to cover, the hype for Dr. Stone has maintained pretty well since it's come to the US. Like I've seen just as many people talk about it now as I did when it first came to on Toonami or when the subs first hit the United States, which is something interesting to see because you really can't say the same thing about the next show, which is Fire Force, because I mean, there's still quite a few people who love it, but like I said, it is a horrible victim of circumstance how just a couple weeks in Japan was the Kyoto animation fire, so fire kind of became a pretty touchy, taboo subject for a while. And I believe, like I said, I believe the Blu-ray sales for it were like abysmal in Japan, mostly because of that tragedy. And no one really wants to see an anime about fire because of it. So, although it does have some attraction in the United States, like I said, it's a show that couldn't have been released in any worse time, and I think that's something that worked against the show. But it pulls in a 0.18 here, which is a good number. Retains very well from Dr. Stone, so you really can't ask for much more. And afterwards, you have Food Wars at a 0.16, a show I've been starting to write off as like, oh, it's gonna slip, it's gonna fall down the schedule, which I still think ultimately it should. Like, I mean, you have Demon Slayer and Golden Wind behind it, which I think are much better shows. Even Black Clover debatably deserves a promotion, I think, in the long term, because there's a lot of diehard fans for it. But you have Food Wars at a 0.16, a show that have been barely pulling in like the teens, starting to slowly climb up again. So I don't know. I'm not like really following Food Wars. Maybe it's coming to another climactic point in the show. I believe we're near like the 20-ish episodes in, and like I said, we are going to get a marathon of it 2 Saturdays from now, so maybe that helps rebuild more interest in the show. But we will only see after that whether that works or not. Then you have Demon Slayer. Last week was the big winner. I think it went up to like a 0.17 last week, and it started to look like it was finding its traction on the block. But this week it goes down a little to a 0.15. And this is a show I'm my opinions about the show are kind of similar to my opinions on like Sword Art Online Alicization from last fall, where it's like it's doing just enough to keep me watching. Is it a show I love so far? No, but there's at least something in each episode that keeps me just willing to go to the next one and keep watching. So I guess it's ultimately doing its job. Although I don't yet see why it got this thunderous applause when the subs first came out. Though I've been told by a lot of people that, oh, just keep watching, it gets better and better. And a lot of people specifically pointing out episode 19. Like, I don't know, but apparently that's like the big episode in it. So I suppose I'll watch that episode when we get there. But again, 0.15, a bit down, but maintaining most of the numbers it's been gaining over the past few weeks. You have Black Clover, kind of a down spot in the block at a 0.13. Again, I can't say too much about the show. I'm not like a fan. I don't hate the show, but I guess it was a bit of a lull in the action this week. That's why it had kind of a disappointing rating. And then you have Golden Wind also at a 0.13, which, like I said, my theory about JoJo and its fan base is that it's a very loud, devout, but small fan base. Like kind of the impression of, oh, because you hear a lot about like, is that a JoJo reference? Like in like every comment section, you think like, oh, it's this massive giant fan base, but maybe it's not that large. But the fans that are fans of it are devout to the show and they are spreading the word wide about the show, but not necessarily bringing in the numbers, which a bit of a spoiler for the last few shows here, but is actually the lowest rated show of the night, which baffles me considering how Lupin the Third Part 5 had been chronically underperforming in the past, how Attack on Titan is reruns at the very end of the block. So honestly, I just feel a bit sad about that because it was another great episode. Golden Wind, a show I think is developing extremely well, but I digress. Maybe not too many people really like it as much as I do, which is all right, I guess. Then after that, you have Shippuden at a 0.14. Shippuden is starting to do the thing it did like a year or so ago, where every single week it was building on the show before it. So it gave this impression of this insanely strong show, albeit, to be fair, it's at 3 o'clock. So it does get the extra day of DVR viewing to count for it. So it is slightly inflated, which might explain for why it beat Golden Winds. But again, at the same time, I guess it looks good for Toonami that a show that is going to be on the block for about good 5 more years is still beating other shows on the block. Then you have Loop on the Third Part 5 with a bizarrely strong week for it at a 0.13. Maybe, I think we only have a few episodes left. I think in like 3 weeks it ends. So maybe it's like this crescendo, this build up in action, which drawing more people to the show. So I guess that's pretty cool too. And then honestly, the rating that baffles me the most, Attack on Titan pulling at a 0.14 in a season one rerun at 4 in the morning. Maybe like I don't think too much of this is DVR viewing because it's not like it's a new episode. There's no reason to DVR this because there's probably plenty of places to watch it online or on like whatever streaming service is on. I don't remember what stream. I think Attack on Titan's on Hulu, but I'm not 1,000% sure on that. Like, why would you DVR it? So that baffles me to why I would get that high a rating that late at night. Like, I know it's been one of the bigger name animes of this decade, but still, that's just kind of impressive to me. So again, what do you guys think about this week? What's your favorite show on the block? I love reading your guys' comments and your opinions down below. If you want me to keep doing more Toonami content like this, please like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification button. I am Super Orange Cat, and that is all.